by pressure, for example, maybe there's a prize in the end, right? Kabena, you are being observed because of something. You are more likely to have a rational answer to what you are being asked. And on the third trial, all the Confederates who start giving the same wrong answer, there were 18 trials in total, and the Confederates answered incorrectly for 12 of them. So you can see out of 12, only 6 of those trials were having the wrong answers based on the influence that is there. So the aim of the research was to see whether participants would conform to wrong answers of Confederates and change their answer to respond in the same way, despite it being the wrong answer. So they had seen, in the group that they have been watching, but when they went to do them as it's harder, because they are looking at the influence that specific had, or that preposition, which are the Confederates that had in the experiment. So that so a person is not using logic now. Only Commandment chose to just take the answer of an individual that they saw as having influence, even when the answer according to them was wrong. So even although that was the expectation, even though that was the experiment, but they saw that majority of the people would not conform something obviously wrong, but they thought that majority of people would not conform to something obviously wrong. But the results showed that only 24 of participants did not conform to any of the trials. They saw how individuals generally would change their perspective when they are influenced accordingly to the individuals that are surrounding them. 75% conformed at least 5%. So when you're looking at 75% at least conforming, shows that generally people are influenced by the surrounding of all the surrounding that they have, even although the answer in terms of what is being asked is incorrect. So overall, there was 37% conformity rate by subjects, average across all critical trials. So in a control group, there was no pressure to conform to any enormous answer. Only one subject out of 35 ever gave an incorrect answer. So this ashcan experiment gives to us a perspective of how groups are generally, when they are formed, to say, in your group, we are not doing. A very good example that we give is, for example, as a class, you are put into group set to have an assignment. So in that assignment, you are most likely to take what the person is saying, even when you have researched and found the information. If only you are having a reference of an individual having to be maybe doing well in that specific area, which influences the decision, and you as a group would be most likely to conform to the ideas of one or several people that you have a reference of doing something more specifically well than you did. So this shows that generally in groups, people conform based on what they see as being influential, as opposed to what themselves individually see as being correct or incorrect. Any questions? If there are no questions, we are going to start the topic of deviance and social control, which is topic number 7. We have covered socialization, we have covered group formation, and now we are covering topic number 7, which is deviance and social control. So we are talking about deviance and social control, referencing back to the ashcan experiment, because we are looking at how people are influenced, right? And also we are looking at the socialization factor. It gives to us the understanding that people generally would engage in behavior based on A, how they are socialized, and B, how they are expected to act based on the group in which they So deviance and social control, social control condemns or disapproves a behavior. So to be formal, which is violent enacting laws, or informal, violating norms not provided by law, is supposed to be discussed as deviance. So, for example, people being part of a group determines whether or not a person is going to be considered as having deviant behavior. So, chimene chingakhala chola kwa maana kupita dziko lina is not a problem, right? It depends on your context. But for an individual to be thought that an action is wrong, it depends on how they are being socialized into that house. An example that we can give is that it is considered to be rude in Arabic countries to eat with your left hand. But maybe in any other country, you see that when you have the left hand, yes? But maybe my own that I'm necessarily a person is not left handed because it is considered as not appreciating what is before you. So when you are looking at something like that, it depends on the context and how an individual has been socialized. So some behaviors are acceptable for certain groups and some activities are illegal for some age groups. So for example, drinking alcohol, it's 18 and above. So in some countries they take that literally where they find an age drinking, they are going to arrest you. You find that in countries, there are some countries where marijuana is illegal and a lot of other countries it is not. So it depends on the group or the context in which that specific action is being performed. And people who engage in deviant behavior do so in order to challenge the existing social norms and bring about change. So there are two ways in which we say that deviant behavior would be done. So, for example, when you're looking at something like the Batman demonstration, it's a form of deviant behavior that wants to bring about revolution and change according to the situation that is occurring in that specific community. But sometimes deviant behavior is done just as a way to challenge those social norms. This however has been right? Because you are looking at the situation in which that person lives in or the socialization that person has gone through. So it has been said that in Arabic countries, things are relatively safe. If you are in a restaurant and you leave your phone or whatever your belongings and you go maybe to the restroom, because of the resources that are available and how the country has been socialized. Kutubange is also in maybe African countries or other countries. So we are looking at the characteristics that individuals have based on the social context in which they engage. So, for example, my example, but many in these countries where they control or they promote people to have freedom and taking care of other people's belongings, they will be more immutable if an individual was found or caught with another person's belonging. So you see that deviance will be different depending on the social context. So there are several types of deviance. The first type is formal deviant behavior. So the formal deviant behavior is defined as a behavior that violates formally enacted laws. They have been enacted those laws. This type of deviant behavior is often criminal in nature and can result in punishment such as fines, imprisonment, or even death. So when you are looking at Malamulo, which areas that can be immutable regards to how you have violated those laws. So simply because it's not all laws that when you break them, it's going to result into imprisonment. Some things might become a fine, but others will result in imprisonment or even death, depending on the country. So examples of formal deviant behavior include but are not limited to murder, robbery, assault, rape, child molestation, and so on. So there are a lot of formal deviant behaviors because they are coming in based on the structure of laws of specific countries. Some are universal and some are not. The second type of deviant behavior is informal deviant behavior. So it is defined that behavior that violates informal social norms. What informal social norms do you know? So the block seasonal embedded, but it is more like what is expected of you. So the reason I'm asking all these questions is that my friend was saying what Sociology is. Okay? I don't ask like that. I expect you to apply what I told you. Make reference to various aspects of the literature that has been given, right? So we have talked about a group. Assuming it's a society, we talked about a society, right? Assuming it's a society. A society has got given laws. For example, my law, there are given laws that I say in formal given behavior where you have a certain periodic action. But when you're looking at informal social norms, you would tell what is expected of you, for example, right? A good example that I can give you right now is in the context of saying you're in class, right here. Sarah is our Tuesday, and it is in the interest of everyone to hear what I'm saying. The name of the person who one right? It is an informal debate behavior because you are affecting the other individuals who actually want to pay attention, right? Or if you look at any form of activity where it is not an actual written rule, but it is an expected behavior for you to conduct yourself in a certain way within a certain context, or even in church. Mind is all that having a sorrow, you know what is on the other. You might not change that. What are they? But it's just expected, right? So let's say it's only to change the one. Bila uchange chibukizo change the wapa vipi ndio ndishi. And to sabana muda kubwa. Muna hapa bile. So these are some parts of the informal behavior where it is not a written rule, but those are just expectations in terms of how you interact and conduct yourself. So this type of given behavior is often seen as more minor than formal. So that's the reason why if someone does something like that, people just sort of de-associate you with that specific group. And formal, more minor than formal defense, and typically does not result in legal punishment. So instead of people who engage in formal given behavior may be ridiculed by their peers. So for example, in here it talks about loitering. So it can be a lot of examples where you are expected to engage yourself in a specific way. And because you have not done that, you have been disassociated from that specific group. And type number 3 is subcultural deviant behavior. So subcultural deviant behavior is defined that as a behavior that violates the norms of a particular subculture. So when you are looking at the subculture, it just represents specific values and norms within a small cultural group. So you are not looking at, for example, the cultural group of the entire country, or even maybe the subcultural perspective of an entire university such as this, but maybe a specific group. So a subculture is a social group within a large culture, and it has its own distinct values, beliefs, and behaviors. So for example, you can determine as a class maybe in 3 years you use positive impact distinction, right? And you challenge yourself as a class to say that class will almost present a proposal less than the same amount, right? As classes will have something like that. So that subcultural behavior will determine that individuals should be part of the same values, beliefs, and behaviors that bring about the outcome that has been agreed by that subculture. So class now will be different, and some classes will also be different. So examples of subcultural different behavior again will include, but are not limited to, gun violence, drug use, and prostitution. So they are subcultural because people have different perspective on how they engage themselves. For example, when we are looking at the issue of drug use, where individuals within a subculture would determine themselves in regards to avoiding things such as drug use, as opposed to another specific group that has got a drug use prominence. So an example that I can give you again in regards to this is when you're looking at a certain demographic that is targeted by certain products. For example, people who make alcohol, right? Magamba na alcohol. They have a certain demographic in which they target. And depending on the levels of alcohol percentages in alcohol, the alcohol percentage in that particular product will determine the demographic that will be considered more appropriately more appropriate according to that specific product. And type number 5 is serial deviant behavior. So by serial, we just mean repetition. Muntu huyu ni nguvu kitabasi, right? So for example, being convicted by crimes of a teenager who is shoplifts every time or enters department stores for excitement of committed serial deviant crime. So this is common amongst the certain cultures where there are some people that find an excitement in committing crime. So paraphernalia go that they know they are serial deviant committers, but not because of the excitement, but rather situation in a but I want to know that situation in a Chibele wanga bado tubina na kuna hina kibabe. And I want to know that hina so you see can you go back basi na this is what maybe I should support myself. As opposed to some that engage in that behavior because of just excitement in serial crime committed. And the last type of different behavior is situational deviance. It is defined as a behavior that is considered deviant in a particular situation but not in others. So, for example, public reading. It is considered deviant in most public places, but it is expected in nude beaches. Similarly, using profanity is only considered deviant when it is occurring in a setting where cursing is not allowed or frowned upon, such as work or at school. So when you are looking at situational deviance, you are looking at breaking a certain value or certain laws within a situation that is not expected in that situation. A situation just means that an individual doing something outside of what is expected of them in that specific situation. So it changes. A person or an individual who engages in a situation of deviance would not generally be considered as a person who is doing something wrong, but rather it depends on the context in which that particular activity has been done. Any questions? Okay. So we have looked at deviance, we have looked at the 5 types of deviance, giving respect to why people engage in deviant characteristics in regards to the types of deviant behavior that has been classified. We've also looked at group formation, taking into consideration of the group formation process, the types of making reference to the Ashton experiment, and the process of group formation, and also the types of groups such as the formal and informal groups. And previously with that, we talked about the concept of socialization, which represents people's behavior in regards to how they act in specific functions and determine their characteristics and how they interact with people in not only their families, that also represents group formation and social interaction as a whole. So this is the end of today's lesson. And in the next lesson, we are going to pick up from there. And as I said, some of you are not here, is that we are just going to have the makeup class on Tuesday or the grace week. So I'll communicate the time which we're going to have that last us learning continuously for a longer period of time. Okay.
Hello, teaching. Sorry.
How you do? Yeah. How you do? Come on. Yeah. Okay.
Come on.
Can you stop the thing?
Nah, you just told so badly. Stop. You know,